I think people need to go see P3's production of Wounded because they haven't experienced something so electric in a long time. This play is going to shake them to the core. It is going to make them relive things and think about things they haven't thought about in a long time. It's going to make them question things they've done, things they were thinking about doing. And I think it's really going to move them as a human being. And I think it's important. I think the topics that we are including in this play are human and important.
Wounded via P3 production is a must-see. You're going to see two artists that are on purpose and doing what they were put on this planet to do, with a piece that is rife with comedy and tragedy it's what I was put on this planet to do, as far as experiencing all the feels. And you're going to see two artists at the top of their game throwing down and telling a story unlike it's been told before.
I wanted to be a part of this play, first off, because my talented friend Craig Taggart suggested me for it. He called me and he said he read the script and he could think of no one else to play the role. I was blown away. And I have such respect and regard for him as an actor and an artist that I didn't even need to think about it. I didn't even need to read the script. I was in at that moment. Luckily, after reading the incredible script by Jigs Burgess, it's phenomenal, and it's so well written that it's just, I can already see it in my head, and the characters are so real and honest and wounded that I just can't wait to play a part like this.
I am in love with this playwright style. I honestly feel as if, Jigs Burgess and I, the playwright, have never met, but I feel as if he has written something that comes from my soul, in that I feel such a connection to Carol, in the fact that the way Jigs has crafted this character is that he's rife with witticisms, and there's an innate poignancy to him. The words that come out of his mouth are so delicious to say because it's rooted in Southern humor, and that's something that I've always had an affinity for based on having grown up in Missouri. My grandmother would say, we're not Southern, we're country. But it's been a writing style that I've always had, held very close to my heart. And Jigs is so talented with it that he makes the work of an actor quite easy, simply by speaking the words that are on paper. My character, Carol, goes through quite the arc in Wounded, in that at the beginning of this chapter of the story, he is a nervous wreck. He is expecting company, somebody who he has not seen in years, who he's very, very excited to see. And we go on quite the journey of his nervousness and then settling into the pain and the pain that comes from the honesty of his experience with his guest that comes to visit, and the terms of his own life, and his coming to terms with the failed purpose that has been his existence, and unrealized dreams that he's experienced. So it's quite the ride of nervousness and being frazzled, and how he overcompensates that, and ultimately being honest with both himself and a loved one.
My character in the play Wounded is Robert. Everybody in this play has been wounded, and badly, pretty badly, in some way, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And I think both characters, and mine in particular, is grasping for some sort of redemption, He needs to be forgiven. He needs to forgive. The themes in Wounded, they are the themes, once you've seen this powerful play, that we all have and suffer from and try to overcome every day of our lives. Our past, the parts of our past that haunt us, the parts of our past that still control the puppet strings of how we are the rest of our lives. And for my character, I'm trying to cut those strings. I'm trying to get over addiction that has really shaped my life. And I'm looking for some sort of salvation that I don't know comes.
The layering of the themes of Wounded, I mean, even just looking at it from the standpoint of why is that the title? Wounded, in the fact that it speaks to the experience of humanity, in that how do we rebound from being hurt? And what happens when we're hurt? How do we process that? It reminds me a lot of the Langston Hughes poem of A Dream Deferred. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Does it fester? And there's a lot of components in Carol and in Robert, who's also in the other character in the play, of what wounded looks like, what wounded is, and how does one overcome being hurt.
What I'm looking forward to performing this particular play live at the Fringe Festival is I'm sure what is going to be some deafening silence in the audience. This play, I've never read anything so powerful, really. And it's staggering. And I think that people are going to connect with it, and they are going to be processing things in their own lives while they're sitting there that they haven't thought about in a long time. And so that's what I'm looking most forward to. I'm looking forward to the reaction, the way that we are going to be able to move these people. We're going to make them laugh, and we're going to make them long, and we're going to make them hurt a little, and we're going to make them leave changed. That's what I'm looking forward to. I want them walking out a little different person.
I am most looking forward to, when performing Wounded live on stage, is feeling that connection with number one, I'm looking forward to throwing down with Shaw Jones. He is one of my favorite actors. I am thrilled beyond measure that he is doing this with me. And the other thing that I love as an actor, as I've spoken to, as far as the difference between film and television, is I was born to be on stage. I know that is my purpose. And having that exchange and that relationship with an audience for an hour and a half, telling this story, knowing that they've got a connection to this character just like I've got a connection to this character, and that we'll all walk away with it, learning something a little bit about ourselves. I do have a history with Shaw Jones, my co-star in Wounded, in that we first met about a decade ago at the Richard Lawson Studios. So we've studied acting together. So what's really cool about this particular project as we get ready to jump in is that he and I already have a chemistry and a shorthand of working with one another. I trust him implicitly. I know that the work that he's going to bring to the table is going to impinge me. I know that I can volley back to him and have that exchange that otherwise would take a little bit of getting to know you with a total stranger, and we actually can bring the history that is inherent between Carol and Robert through Craig and Shaw. So I'm really excited about that, and I cannot wait to play with. He's brilliant, and I can't wait for everybody to see how just phenomenal he is. And selfishly, I can't wait to play.
I think what will surprise people about this play is the depth that it goes to. It starts out, it's light. I don't think they understand the cliff that they're driving towards. And it's going to be a great moment when the car goes over.
I think audiences will be surprised with Wounded at its unapologetic honesty. It peels away throughout the course of the story some really, really dark, some really, really painful experiences that this individual, that Carol, has gone through. Because as with great Southern writing, it's all the feels. It's laugh out loud, and then on a dime, you're on the verge of crying your heart out, because funny people oftentimes are the deepest wounded. And it's inherent in the writing, but I think people will be really surprised with just how honest the character ultimately becomes regarding his experience and how raw that is. What I would like to say to Jiggs Burgess, the playwright, is thank you for this opportunity, for speaking such specificity to this character of Carol, because something that I have learned in the evolution of my artistry is that the more specific one can be with their storytelling, the more universal it becomes. And the specificity in which Carol is written lands on me in that I have, over the course of the last 40 some odd years that I've been doing this, I know who this man is, and it's something that I literally was put on this earth to do. And I cannot wait to do it. And I thank you for the chance, Jiggs.
People should go to, they must go see Craig and Shaw play these parts. Is one of the reasons they must. And they should, because I think it's going to, once again, to me, the biggest thing about theater is that it makes you feel something. And I think whether or not you like what it makes you feel, and I think that this show will make you feel, and it will make you want to discuss things afterwards. And so for that reason, I think people should go see it. I personally think the writing's good, but I would. I don't always think that about my writing, though. But I think that there are things in the script that are just well done. And with those actors, I don't think people want to miss that. I think it's something that people are going to talk about. If we get it right, it's going to be legendary, iconic, whatever you want to say. Hi, I'm Jiggs Burgess. I'm the author of Wounded. And if you want to know more about this play, just keep listening. Oh gosh, Wounded's a twisted little tale. It came to me as I was sitting on my back porch watching my hummingbirds, and you'll see how that's that's definitely where it comes from when you see the play. It's a tale that I've been obsessed in the last few years with justice and revenge. And when is it justice and when is it revenge? And this doesn't deal with the justice part. This is really about revenge. But I had this, and I had that voice of the lead character, and I knew that he had been wounded, and I knew he was an incredibly wounded character. But I also felt, knew he was funny, and that he would amuse people. But he wouldn't leave me alone till I wrote him, number one. And It just turned out that this obsession of mine with justice and revenge fits in with that character really well. Um, and once again, I don't want to go too far into that. Maybe saying it's about revenge is actually too far, because the first probably third of the play, you're just going to love him. You're just gonna, he's gonna be, I think, somebody you want to know. And the last third, I think you're gonna understand just how damaged this guy is and how dark he can be. So, well, it's about Carol. Carol is he is a mediocre writer at best. He's had three books published. One was made into a movie. It was the worst movie, the only movie that Meryl Streep ever did that got bad reviews, according to him. And but he's been forced to move back to his hometown to take care of his mother. He promised his father before he died that he would do this, even though he has brothers that could do some of this. He's promised that he would. And in doing that, it just has dredged up a lot of pain for him over the years, until we get to this point where this friend comes to visit, and I say friend loosely, but the friend dredges up more childhood, junior high school pain for him, and it's I think it's he had a revenge fantasy, and he sees the opening to actually make that fantasy real. Yeah, I think that theme is that we're all damaged, and some of us are more damaged than others, and hide it until we can't anymore. I think that's the major theme for that show. But I've got incredible actors. It's a two-hander, and just once again, just incredible actors. I don't know how I've gotten so lucky. Craig Taggart has been with this show from the earliest drafts as a reader. He just came in with the right voice, the right attitude. I didn't think I'd be ever be able to find anybody that was exactly what I wanted for this part. And this actor can do it. He's just incredible in this role. It's like I had written it for him, but I had not. And then Shaw, who plays Robert, the second character, he was a friend of Craig's, who we were auditioning, and Craig said, "Well, I've got this person who'd like to." And from that first tape, it was just amazing. So the two of them together are going to blow this show out of the water. Once we get it on stage and get it all polished up. If the show doesn't do well, it's not because of them. It's the script, because they're just incredible. I think they're going to be surprised with their change of feeling for Carol. I think they're going to be surprised with what he's made of. Without kind of going any further, I think some of the things he brings up will surprise. Now, I also think that we have to warn people. There's a lot of sexual kind of violence that he talks about. So that's, I'm hoping that we get that warning out so that it doesn't surprise people in that way, and that's not a good thing. But I think they're going to be surprised by the fact that they're going to go home and they're going to feel conflicted by these characters. Who's right, who's wrong, and I don't think there is an answer to that. From my point of view, the people, actors and technicians and writers and theater people in general should get involved with P3, because it's an authentic production company. They care about the writing, they care about the acting, they care about the technical aspects. From my point of view, from from what I have, and they're honest, and that's sometimes hard to find in this business. And John is just incredibly supportive. And I think I'm not the only one he's supportive to. I think he's just one of those people who is incredibly supportive and creative and wants things done in a very honest and authentic way. And I think that that's a must. So should have, but should. But I think people need to get involved with P3 for that reason, whether it's a volunteer or as an actor, technician, director. Theater companies like P3, the small theater companies like John has, is they need people's donations and they need money to they produce people that wouldn't get produced, say the Manhattan Theater Club or any of the big LA or Chicago or New York producers. It probably wouldn't touch me because I'm not known. Um, and with John, it's he saw a script that he liked, he thought would work, he kind of fell in love with, um, and he went with it. And small theater companies can do that, and it's important that we have that because how does a writer or an actor or a director get known if they don't have a company like P3 to start with to help them, to nudge them along and to do their work. Um, and that's why people should get involved and donate and do what they can for companies like P3. It's incredibly important to our cultural life in this country. Our cultural life is kind of falling apart right now, and it needs all the help it can get. People should go to, well, they must go see Craig and Shaw play these parts. Is one of the reasons they must, uh, and and they should, because I think it's going to once again, to me, the biggest thing about theater is that it makes you feel something. And I think whether whether or not you like what it makes you feel, and I think that this show will make you feel, and it will make you want to discuss things afterwards. And so for that reason, I think people should go see it. Um, I personally think the writing's good, but I would. I don't always think that about my writing though. But I think that there are things in the script that are just well done. And with those actors, I don't think people want to miss that. I think it's something that people are going to talk about. If we get it right, it's gonna be legendary, iconic, whatever you want to say.
Hi, I'm Shaw Jones. I will be playing Robert in the P3 Theater Company production of Wounded. You've got to come see this play. Be ready to be moved. I'll see you at the theater.
Hey, I am Craig Taggart. I am starring as Carol in the upcoming production of Wounded, produced by P3 Productions. You do not want to miss this. It's going to be incredible.
Hi, I'm Jigs Burgess. I am the playwright of Wounded. And I beg you to come see this show because you're going to see some performances that are going to blow you out of the water. So come see us. See you at the theater.
You must come to this play because it is an original play and it is talking about all these deep human themes about the veteran experience that will change your life. You will be opened up by their stories. These are real stories of real veterans that we've put together to showcase and highlight their experience. These stories actually happened. And that's what makes it so unique. That's what makes it so important for you to come see, because sometimes you'll come to a play that the story's moving, but it was created in the world of the writer. It's created in the world of Eugene O'Neill or Tennessee Williams or Shakespeare or Harold Pinter, whomever, and it's there and it's brilliant. And it's characters that are living in those circumstances, and they're fictional. The circumstances that are described in our play are real. It's based on truth. That these stories happen. And that's what makes it so unique. And when you hear that, it resonates so deeply on a deeper level that it will be changed by it. You will come out of this having a greater appreciation of what the veteran experience is and what it means to be human in some very extreme circumstances.
I think they should, because I think people should go to our play because it's telling a story that you're not going to be getting from a action film or from the media, the journalism, and it's using creativity to show you the inner lives of military characters, some who've been in horrific battles and others, and how they've tried to cope with it and how they've survived up until 2021 anyway. My name is Paul Hohenzeidler. I am the adapter, writer, director of We Got Your Six, and we are Lightning Rod Theater, and we make it our passion to give you a theater experience that you won't get from anyone else. We will always be lightning rods.
Hi, my name is Charlie Pacello. I'm an actor, producer, and co-director of the We Got Your Six play. If you're interested in learning more about this production, please watch this video. The reason we wanted to bring this project to, do this project is twofold. One of the things that I do when I'm not doing theater is I'm working with and helping people with PTSD and trauma to overcome their pain from, whether it's war, child abuse, domestic violence, rape, refugees, incarceration, helping people to heal from their traumas and being able to overcome those past pains so that they could live the life they were meant to live. And one of the things that I was studying and working on was how do we utilize theater to be a vehicle for healing? How do we enable to use this ancient technology, that had been used by these ancient Greeks so long ago, that helped their society and their communities to purge their toxic emotions from the wars and conflicts that they had? How do we relate that to the modern day? How do we incorporate that in our very modern, technological, materialistic, commercial world that doesn't seem to see that these things correlate? And so I worked with a couple of nonprofit organizations. One was called the Mindful Warrior Project. We brought mindfulness practices down to veterans on Skid Row. And it was there that we did a couple projects that were bringing theater to these veterans down on Skid Row, that here they were in hell. If anybody's been to Skid Row in Los Angeles, one of the most heartbreaking places in our country. It's just devastating. Lots of drugs, lots of violence going on down there. And so we came to bring some help and healing to the veterans that were living there, and those that did our program had some remarkable results. And we did a couple theater shows. It was Gail Sofer, who was who I worked with in that project, and we did some theater projects. And the veterans were very responsive. They had these breakthroughs, and they were in one time. I was developing a program where I was taking a veteran story and learning how to identify the archetypal elements of their story and putting it onto the stage. And I took this veteran story, developed it, and then performed it before them down there at Skid Row. And this was a very complicated story, a lot of trauma, a lot of horrible trauma. And I ended up performing it before these 9 veterans that were there. And these are crusty old veterans, hard life. And the veteran whose story I was doing, he was like holding on to his chair and was ready to bolt out of the auditorium or out of the cafeteria where we were performing this, so that, if it got too rough on him. And so I performed it. And when I got done, every man was crying in there. Every man was crying. They were embracing each other. They were holding each other. They were saying, "Oh my gosh, you are helping our souls. You are saving our souls." And the man whose story he said, you screamed out loud what I have been screaming inside my whole life. And so you saw this cathartic purging that was happening for these men. The other thing is I worked with an organization called Soldier's Heart with Dr. Edward Tick and Kate Dahlstedt. Worked with them for many, many years, learning how the holistic process and how to help veterans heal without having to resort to medications or psychotropic medications to help them get through it, to help them identify their wounds and move through it. And one of the things that I studied I went to Greece 3 times with Dr. Tick, learning about the ancient Greek tradition, about how to apply this, how to use theater in a way that, again, begins to help identify those deeper wounds in their psyche, in their emotional life, and how to present that on this stage and how effective it is, and learning those techniques. And Soldier's Heart enabled me to be able to work with many veterans doing this kind of work. I did a healing retreat back in 2021 up in Montana, where I worked with veterans there, some combat veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. And we dove into some theater work at that retreat, where they dove into a play called Heracles Gone Mad, which was one of Euripides' plays. And to see them open up, these were some of them were suicidal, suffering from, and the reading the play and breaking the script down and really opened them up in ways that was just incredible. It was incredible to see them all of a sudden. There had this revelation, this understanding. They were really, and it would have been, we broke these script down in ways better than some of the actors that I have used or worked with before, because they understood that the dynamics that were happening for those characters because of their war experiences. So with all that background, that's the reason why we're doing this show. We Got Your Six. It's called We Got Your Six, and it is about covering your back. I got your back. That's what We Got Your Six is, because I got your back. You got my back, and when you're in war, you're relying on your buddy to cover your back, because you're getting, when you're in a combat situation, you're getting fire that's coming from all different directions, and you got to know that your buddy, man or woman, has got you. That they're gonna help you to get home again. And so that's why we're doing this show. It's an amalgamation of a lot of different veteran stories. It's based on a lot of truthful stories that are woven together into a theatrical narrative. One of my veteran friends, he has a nonprofit organization called Bullets and Band-Aids. And what he does, he served in Afghanistan. He collects individual stories of these veterans, has a writer write down the story, about 4 pages, and then has an artist paint an image from their experience. It might be boots on the ground. It might be dog tags. It might be a nuclear explosion, whatever it may be. And then he has a walking tour going down in South Carolina, Georgia area where he lives. So he gave us permission to look at some of the stories, and we extracted some of the stories and have brought it to the stage. Ones that were very compelling, that we felt were going to do exactly what we're to evoke those feelings in people, to help them to understand the veteran experience on a very personal level, and to see how that veteran experience impacts them when they return home, because that they're changed by the experience when they go out into the field, when they go out into combat, and when they come home. It's really difficult for people to get back into feeling like, I belong to this society, I belong to this community. And so we want to share these kinds of stories. We want to be able to help veterans, or give them the opportunity to share these stories in meaningful ways, so that they can reconnect to the community that they serve, and that the community can understand what they do. And hopefully it helps to achieve that catharsis and cleansing that is so needed and by our veteran community.
My partner in Lightning Rod Theater, Charlie Pacello, is a veteran, and he's dealt with some PTSD issues. His father was a veteran who's dealt with lots of PTSD issues. And we've always, since we founded the company back in 2009, 2010, we've always had that component that we were going to, and Charlie's done a lot of research on how theater can be used, and the catharsis of theater can be used as a therapy tool for vets. And, the thing is, the earliest playwrights were all veterans. Aeschylus, Euripides, they had all fought in wars. And one of the reasons theater started was to tell the civilian populace about the war, about the trauma of killing other people. And even though we're being cheered as we come back, there's a lot of pain involved with that too. So we have done, I would say a good number of shows on a military theme. Back in 2014, we did a show called Woof Woof, which was about a Iraqi war vet with a traumatic brain injury coming back home. And then Charlie has been getting involved. There's a real interesting network of small theaters. Small veteran support groups. And while he had his radio show on in Denver, he was meeting and interviewing a lot of people. We've got the idea about having vets write monologues, and then we would have actors read them in a workshop production. And that was the first volume of We Got Your Six, which was about a year ago. And then after that was done, I realized we could take some of these monologues and kind of fit them into a narrative about Afghanistan and its aftermath, and have a really great, tight 1-hour ensemble piece about it. And so I started adapting. I adapted and I added a couple of the narratives. Others are written by some of the vets. Some of those has some of the original narrative by the vets. So it's like adapted by me and directed by me, and written, or the stories by me and the other vets, including an anonymous one. So
the main story in the arc of the play is it takes place in two times. The moment that when Kabul fell. So just a couple of years ago, I think it was when Kabul fell, the Afghan, or excuse me, the Taliban were overrunning the airport. There was a lot of Marines that were there that got killed. So it's that moment when the Marines from this same company that we are a part of, that they lost some men and women. And so each of these characters, there's 7 characters, that are touched by this moment because it's that company that they served it. And once they hear the news of what's going on in Kabul, the explosions, the loss of life, the detonation, it brings them back in a flashback to the moment that all of them are united together in this really vicious battle in the Afghanistan war, where they were all together and had to deal with taking someone who hit a landmine and an IED blew up and he lost both of his legs, and how this moment changed everyone. How this moment where all of them were impacted and trying to get this Marine out, and how they had to do it, and the intensity of the combat, the intensity of the firefight as they were extracting this Marine to get him to safety. And then there's a little storyline in addition to that it was absolutely 100% happened. There was a child or children that were involved. They got hit by fire, and what happened after that. And so we're weaving all of these stories together to bring the sense of the intensity of combat that these veterans face, and then moving back out to their present day moment and the revelations that they feel when they realize that everything that they had done was for nothing. So
it is the present moment of the play is August 26, 2021. The moment of the bombings at Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul, when 13 Marines were killed by 2 suicide bombers. And the 7 cast members in the play are all out of the military by now. And they're at the moment when they all find out about the bombings. One guy is going back to school shopping with his kids. Another one is homeless and living outside the VA on San Vicente Boulevard. And, you know, there's a wide variety of everything. And the captain of the little Marine unit is trying to get their interpreter out of Afghanistan. He's driven a long way to a State Department office in North Carolina, and has gotten there and found out that there's no one in the office. They've all been pulled to come back to DC to deal with all the visa applications. And so then we go from there back into a brutal firefight their unit had with the Taliban in 2011. And then we come back out again.
I want the audience to come out of this play production having a greater sense of what the veteran experience is all about. There's only about less than 1% of the population that serves. There's only less than 1% of the population of the United States that hears the call to serve their country. And it's that less than 1% that is willing to die for others that they don't even know of, to give them the freedoms that they take for granted. And so we want to be able to hopefully that you come away with a greater appreciation of the challenges, of the moral dilemmas that these men and women go through all the time, that they are forced to face with, and that there is a lot of gray area there, that sometimes it's not all black and white. It's not that, you know, when you're in those kind of situations, you have to do things that you don't want to do, or you have to face things that you didn't know you would have to face. And it leaves you haunted. It can leave you with haunting memories, painful memories of, I could have done better, or I should have done better. I wish I would have done better. And these veterans that carry these deep wounds, these emotional, psychological wounds, that they come back into the communities, and they're changed by what happened to them, and they don't know how to fit in. They might feel like a bad person inside, a monster inside, someone who's, you know, not worthy to be a part of. They've got something that's unforgivable inside. They did something that was so bad. And had they not been in that experience, they wouldn't have had to make that choice. And so helping to open people's heart to that compassion for what they go through. That's what I hope that we give to our audiences, that you can, just get a glimpse of that sense of their humanness too, that they didn't, a lot of times they had to do things that they didn't want to do, and they deserve to be welcomed back and embraced and appreciated for the sacrifices that they made, and to help our society and community better, to make better choices, to make better decisions. If we're learning about our stories, their stories, they no longer have to carry it on their own. We carry it for them, and then we make better decisions. We understand the sacrifices, and then they feel like they're a part of the community again. And so that's what I hope we can accomplish. That's what I hope.
Hollywood tends to give us just this one narrative of the vet recovering from PTSD, and there's a lot of variety in it, and there's also some vets who handle it pretty well. I think also it's, while there is violence and a firefight in this play, there's no pyrotechnics or anything. It exists in the memory of the characters from 10 years before, and that there's the way Hollywood presents, and the films present a battle, which is really spectacular, man. I love that stuff. You can have a really great battle scene, and it's just amazing. It's very effective. But there's also the interior story of a battle, and I hoping that we get that on stage. And I hope that if the audience comes to see this, they will come out of the theater, pat us on the back, and tell us we have.
When I'm performing live, I'm looking forward to just being on that stage. I'm looking forward to just getting on that stage and feeling that, sensing the audience out there, and the electricity that happens, and all of a sudden you get that nervousness that comes up, all of that preparation, all of that time, and you're out there, and it's there. You don't get to rehearse anymore. You're out there, you're performing, you're in the moment. The choices you make are right now, and there's no going back. And there's something exhilarating about that from a performer standpoint. And when I get on stage, personally, something inside of me lights up when I come on that stage. When I step on that stage, something lights up in me. And it's like I'm no longer encased or closed in by life. I'm freed up to be an aspect of me to come alive. And so that to me is just the thrill of being on stage, and knowing that the audience is out there, and feeling that exhilaration that comes. That's what I look forward to.
I'm looking for the audience to be really involved, that no one's kind of like moving in their seat a little bit. I almost always sit in the back row, often because I'm also doing the house that night, and so I can help anyone who's coming in late. For me, it's just like, is the audience involved? Have they felt an experience different from any that they've had before? Though that's one of the reasons I think I went out and founded, Charlie and I went out and founded Lightning Round, was to tell stories and to tell and to do things on stage that we weren't seeing being done in other theaters, by other theaters, in American drama, and not in film or television either.
I think people will be surprised at the capacity of our humanness to be able to be seen even in the worst of conditions. I think that they will be surprised to see the incredible heroism that goes unnoticed by people that are just doing ordinary things. That these individual heroic actions that save lives that people don't know about. We tend to elevate people and that tend to be nothing against celebrities, but they tend to elevate celebrities, tend to elevate sports figures, politicians, and in the military, you elevate generals, you elevate your commanding officers, but those ordinary folks, those sergeants, those Marines, those privates, those young officers, that there's heroic stories that happen that you just it'll blow your mind, and it'll give you such an appreciation of that, what people do that nobody ever hears about. And so I think that that's what's going to surprise people about this show. And also, when tragedy happens, our ability to overcome that tragedy collectively is really remarkable. When you're about to lose a man, how every moment counts. Every moment of that sequence counts, because it's a matter of life and death. And I think that will catch people like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize we had that capacity to do that.
I think that how internal the fight, or how internal a battle is, or a firefight is, when military personnel are involved. That there's moments where they're just filled with adrenaline and all that, but then there's other characters who are kind of retrospective about it as it's happening. They're recording and they're trying to understand what's going on, and I think that's probably one of the most interesting things we're doing.
You must come to this play because it is an original play, and it is talking about all these deep human themes about the veteran experience that will change your life. You will be opened up by their stories. These are real stories of real veterans that we've put together to showcase and highlight their experience. These stories actually happened. And that's what makes it so unique. That's what makes it so important for you to come see, because sometimes you'll come to a play that the story's moving, but it was created in the world of the writer. It's created in the world of Eugene O'Neill or Tennessee Williams or Shakespeare or Harold Pinter, whomever, and it's there and it's brilliant. And it's characters that are living in those circumstances, and they're fictional. The circumstances that are described in our play are real. It's based on truth. That these stories happened. And that's what makes it so unique. And when you hear that, it resonates so deeply on a deeper level that it will be changed by it. You will come out of this having a greater appreciation of what the veteran experience is, and what it means to be human in some very extreme circumstances.
I think they should, because I think people should go to our play because it's telling a story that you're not going to be getting from a action film or from the media, the journalism. And it's using creativity to show you the inner lives of military characters, some who've been in horrific battles, and others, and how they've tried to cope with it, and how they've survived up until 2021 anyway.
One of my hopes and dreams for the future of this play production, to be able to take this around the country to different cities and locations, and to produce it there in front of other veteran communities, so that they can see and resonate with what's being performed, and to be able to allow them to experience theater the way it can be experienced, that sense of community, connection, communal grief, that sense of being able to mourn together our wounds that we've experienced, and then allow them to be able to share that their experiences after the show is done, where we do a talk back, where we can allow them to process what they saw, what they heard, because a show like this inevitably is going to open up people who have had those experiences. And so giving them permission, because it's opened them up, giving them permission afterwards to be able to speak about it, talk about it, grieve about it, mourn, having people around and available there. That's what I see. I think it could be an enormously powerful and theatrical and healing experience for people. And if we could take it around the country, that's the idea. So that's what I see. I want to see it. I want to see this in other productions where we're taking this project. The idea is to be able to develop other stories as well with the We Got Your Six project, so that we're constantly, renewing it, revitalizing it with new stories, sharing it, so that we keep bringing veteran stories out onto the stage.
It's going to be, in one way or another, a yearly thing for us if we can get the ball rolling. And we're also doing the goal right now is to get to the point where we're doing a Fringe show, a full run production, and then we're having our lightning in a bottle theater play development process. And so probably next year, We Got Your Six will be volume 3, I think. That'll be a workshop with actors reading monologues written by vets. And it's without, knowing your financials, you don't really know what you can do from year to year. So it's going to be, We Got Your Six is going to be a yearly thing for us. Whether it's going to be going into another Fringe show, full-length show, something like that, we don't know yet. But next year will definitely be, we're going to have a workshop with monologues written by vets, performed by actors, like we had last year. And then hopefully we'll get enough money together to put on a full-length show. So then, yay, go Lightning Rod Theater.
I think Lightning Rod Theater was founded, by Paul and I back in 2009. It was an idea that we had together, and now we're like 15 years in or something like that, and we keep going. And our productions are always about trying to, push the leading edge, create incredible content, and also to help our veteran communities, LGBTQ community, and BIPOC community. So your support in our theater company is really, really would be very helpful. So please support our work, lightningrodtheater.com.
Lightning Rod Theater has been around. I mean, as the elephant kind of faded away, we started putting it together. And we've been here for a while, and we've been small. We've been like doing our thing, and we're trying to get to that next level where it's, like I said, a full-length show and a Fringe show, and then a development process, a couple of development workshops every year. And that's kind of like the next level for us. For that, though, we're going to need a lot of support, and we would really appreciate it if you saw the Lightning Rod theater show, if you saw someone mention about it in publicity or something, if you come by and check us out. My name is Paul Hohn-Zeidler. I am the adapter, writer, director of We Got Your Six, and we are Lightning Rod Theater, and we make it our passion to give you a theater experience that you won't get from anyone else. We will always be lightning rods.
Thank you so much. We are so looking forward to seeing you at our production, at our theater. Checking it out, Lightning Rod Theater. We're the Lightning Rods. Looking forward to seeing you at our production of We Got Your Six.
why must people go to my show? I think because it is a piece that explores what it means to be a woman and what it means to feel like you want to be seen, but you don't really want to be seen, and how to share of yourself in a world that told us for so many years that we need to hide inside. I think it's just like very resonant right now because it's so much about connection and loneliness and technology and the expectations around how we're supposed to show up in the world. Hi, I'm Alex Kern, and I'm the actor and playwright of the solo show. Thank you so much for coming. And please take a look at the following video to learn more. The ideas for my show, thank you so much for coming, came from many places. I'm like, how deep do I need to go here for this question? I really wanted to do a solo show and had been wanting to do it for many, many years. And before everything shut down during COVID, I started going to a bunch of solo shows. And I went to a bunch of solo shows at the Lyric Hyperion, which is a small theater on the east side of Los Angeles. And just to like see what inspired me, see what was going on, see what excited me. And I saw this one show called Nate by Natalie Palamides. And I was completely blown away. Had never seen anything like it in my life. Saw it 3 times, talked to everyone, like, what was that? And friends were like, oh, that's clown in character. And I thought to myself, okay, that's what I want to do. So when the world opened back up, I didn't want to return to the stand-up world. I had done a bunch of stand-up and sketch and storytelling. I was like, what is this clown thing? And so I started taking a bunch of workshops, which then led me to meet my director. And then I started developing pieces with her, and then kept working on it. And then it became, an hour. And the inspiration came from a character, 2 pieces, I guess. A character that I had found when I did the Groundlings. This was, I guess, an advanced Groundlings. I found this character named Cynthia, and she was this undersexed florist who was not good at her job, but was just so desperate for love and attention. And I just I thought she was really fun to play. And Natasha was like, well, what characters are you drawn to if you want to do a character clown show? And I was like, sad, desperate women. So this was a woman that I was like, oh, she's going to be the central person in here. And then I thought that it would bring even more characters in it, like other characters that I've done. And it does I do incorporate different voices that I do, but it's really a show about this one character. And then I grew up in an environment that was very much all about entertaining. Like that's how my parents showed their love to their friends and their family, was hosting them and cooking for them. And so that was very much to me a second language in my life. Like, what can I get you? Welcome to my home. And then I worked in the service industry for many years. And so I determined that would be like a really interesting vessel to have Cynthia become this party host, and then she's hosting this party and everyone in the audience are her guests. And to me, it was this idea of this woman who has been catering to all these people for so many years, making other people feel welcome and loved and seen. And then the idea of, well, when the party ends, what happens to this woman and the performance that she's been putting on this whole time. So it's kind of very much like it's definitely a distillation of loneliness. And this idea of a woman who is performing all the time for all these other people. It's this dance, this performance of hosting, and what happens when the party ends, and what happens when people start canceling, which is what happens during the show. And we slowly see her devolve. And to me, because there's a clown element to it, it's kind of like pulling out the absurdity of it. And very much resonant right now because it's so much about connection and how do we connect now in this pandemic, almost post-pandemic, I don't even know how we're supposed to call it, world of connecting. How do we do it now? What is our comfortability around it and how much that's changed? And also just this element of technology, how much is connection tethered to that? Thank you so much for coming is about a woman, Cynthia, and she is the ultimate party host. And she is inviting everyone into her home for the first time in years to throw an amazing party. And there's dancing and there's hats and there's humor. And then the phone starts ringing and people start canceling. And we see her respond to the canceling and eventually devolve as the canceling continues to happen, and we kind of see who this woman is underneath all these layers, these performative layers of party host. Thank you so much for coming is a clown show, and there are many different ways to describe clown, but I guess my understanding, or at least my experience of it within this show, is very much the audience is part of the show. So it's immersive. It's an immersive experience. So as the performer, I'm breaking the fourth wall. And clown to me is what is the performer experiencing and then sharing that with the audience. The performer in clown cannot, or the human, I guess, in clown cannot hide. And to me, it's very much a celebration of sitting in like failure and sharing it publicly. And so regardless of how the performer is feeling, sharing that with the audience and then responding off of how they are responding to you. In this play, there is a phone call element, a phone ring that comes in several times. And as I was developing this, I realized how haunting a phone call can be and how it has a different meaning for everyone on the receiving end of it. And we see that in the performance, the character kind of playing with this idea of, should I answer it? Should I not answer it? Who's on the other end of the call? And hopefully that creates a sense of tension in the audience because everyone has their own relationship with the phone call. Everyone has someone that they don't want to get the phone call from. Everyone has a phone call that they don't want to receive. And it's been, as I've gotten older, it's just interesting to me how the relationship of that phone ring, of that phone call has changed so much. What do I want the audience to get out of my play? I hope that they feel like they see themselves in what they're watching, or they see someone that they care about in what they're watching. I hope this resonates with the audience, and I hope they laugh. And I hope they cry too. I want both. What am I looking for when I'm performing live? I want to stay present. I want to stay connected to myself and therefore available to the audience. I just want to stay in the process and see what I'm able to discover up there for the first time. Like, I'm excited for the surprises that come, and I want to be so connected that I'm available to the surprises. I don't want to be looking for the next moment. And I think that's what clown really encourages, is like, let's sit in this moment. Let's take our time. Let's be silent. Let's play with sound. Let's play with silence. And let's see how we can surprise ourselves and the people who are watching the performance. Why must people go to my show? I think because it is a piece that explores what it means to be a woman and what it means to feel like you want to be seen, but you don't really want to be seen, and how to share of yourself in a world that told us for so many years that we need to hide inside. I think it's just like very resonant right now. because it's so much about connection and loneliness and technology and the expectations around how we're supposed to show up in the world. I think it's important for anyone, in order to support me as an artist, please come to my show. Hello, I'm Alex Kern. I'm the actor and playwright of the solo show. Thank you so much for coming. Please come to my show. And it's about this woman named Cynthia, and she's hosting this amazing party, and she just wants you to come, okay? She's just the ultimate host, okay? You've got to come. Don't forget to come, okay? Please. She's going to get so upset if you don't come. So yeah, please come to my show.
Hi there, I'm Laser. I am the writer and performer of A Shark Ate My Penis. I bet you're wondering more, so keep watching. I love musicals so much. I think the reason is, if I'm to dig into my own psychology, is that I really like people explicitly saying how they feel, because I have a hard time reading human emotion. So, like they say, in a musical, you burst into song when you can no longer speak, like the emotion is too strong. And I think so frequently in real life, when the emotion gets too strong and we can no longer speak, we just stop and we go and hide. But in a musical, you can have this opportunity to tell people how you're feeling and to process those feelings. Also, I just love musicals. I love the music. I love listening to it. I've been a big Disney musicals fan. Alan Menken is my hero since I was a little baby boy. It's just the stuff that has always made the most sense to me. So it feels like both harder than straight theater, in that you have to write songs and you have to figure out how to mic them and put music, but it's also, to me, just like an easier way to tell stories, because you can just say exactly what you're thinking, and the corniness is part of it. The show I'm doing, called A Shark Ate My Penis, a story of guys like me, a history of guys like me. It's a show about trans men through the past. And the reason I wanted to write it is I've been reading especially one book called Female Husbands by Jen Manion. And it told these stories of these guys who were trying to live their truth, from 1700 to 1900, in a world where the word transgender didn't even exist, right? But at the same time, their stories are so similar to mine and so relatable, on an emotional level and on a logistical level of how do you try to get people to see you as a man, and how do you get through your life, and how do you find a woman who wants to be with you, even though you may not have, the life that people are expecting, given the way you look. And it immediately hit me in the face of I have to write a musical about this. I have to tell these people's stories, because the songs that they would sing are the same songs that I would sing, about their feelings and their struggles. The main story of the musical is mine. It's a story about me and how I came out as trans, and why I didn't come out earlier, which is kind of the big mystery for me, because when I look back, everything is so obvious. So it's going through that, and then diving into the stories of these role models, of these guys throughout history, and how their stories are pretty much the same as mine. And also dealing with transphobia and people who say that it's not real, and the internalized transphobia that comes from, being a member of this society, which is represented by J.K. Rowling in the show. So we have, the actual plot has a lot of time travel, has a lot of conversations, has a lot of songs, but ultimately it's just a a story told in a funny way about my journey. My goal with this show and what I want the audience to get out of it is catharsis. I don't like shows about queer trauma, so I try to keep it light and the point of it is, hey, we have always been here, and here are some stories that you may not know from history, and also the struggle that we have of defining our identities and finding the right label is both universal and not the end all be all, right? It's you just being yourself and knowing who you are is enough. And that's my goal with the show, whether you're trans or not. I hope that you can learn something and also learn something about your own journey on the way. I'm Laser Weber, creator of A Shark Ate My Penis, and you should come see it. And you will be able to enjoy that. It's a really good time, and I hope you'll come out.
Well, I think people must go to my show because it's not just a story that I've been told needs to be told, and that can connect to lots of different people, lots of different experiences. But it's also a mission. So for as long as I perform my show, um, for my lifetime, for as long as I decide to perform it, half of all the profits that would be made from this show are going to get donated to a mental health charity organization foundation that's doing really, really awesome and impactful and like meaningful work in the worlds of mental health awareness, suicide prevention, and overall mental wellness. I'm supporting the JED Foundation, JED Foundation, and they're a foundation that supports struggling teens and young adults who are struggling with mental health issues. So I think folks must see my show for the story that it is, but also to be a part of the mission, to be a part of the cause, to be a part of the Storytelling Heals movement in its very first hurrah, its very first foray into existence. Because they can make a direct impact not only on my life from supporting my show and seeing my show and hearing the story, but also they can, with the purchase of a ticket, they could have a direct impact on somebody who really needs help in the movement as a whole. So yeah, I think it's very important. I think it's a very important thing that this story gets out there and this movement keeps moving and keeps growing. Yeah. So vital, so important. Greetings. My name is Christian Ty Edwards. My show is called The Sad Life of a Happy Man. If you'd like to hear more about it, continue on and listen to this talk. The idea behind The Sad Life of a Happy Man has been with me for a long time. So I've had the sort of the desire or the itch to scratch, if you will, to perform a solo show, a one-man show for a long time. I'd say at the very least, excuse me, I'd say at the very least when I was a freshman in college, and then sort of through my life in college, while there were many great things that happened, I also struggled greatly with depression and anxiety, and also started going to therapy for the first time and learned a lot about myself and how to navigate the world. And my senior year was especially hard. My senior year was actually kind of hell. And during my senior year, I took an independent study with a professor I admire very much. And that independent study, and this is the story I tell everybody, the independent study went up in flames, ended in total disaster, just did not end well. But what came out of it was the very first edition, the very first draft of my show, The Sad Life of a Happy Man. And it was a one-act version. I had written it as if I could clone myself, or just a bunch of different actors could play the different roles, but each of the different characters were written to be different pieces of me. They make up different pieces of who I am. Yeah, and I think in the moment, pretty much, I kind of thought to myself, yeah, I'm going to turn this into a solo show one day. And so it kind of sat fallow until 2020. And then when we were in quarantine, yeah, a friend of mine back here from DC, the DC area, was doing an online intensive on creating your own solo show, kind of from start to finish, the whole writing to performing, producing, all that stuff. And it kind of happened at the perfect time. And I was like, I think this needs to finally go somewhere. And in a time where we were, I think, getting to reflect on a lot individually and personally and collectively as a nation and as a world, it just felt like, okay, this is the time for this to come to life. And so yeah, so there was a part of me that just had to dive in. The play really is about 5 different pieces of myself kind of coming to terms with each other. So if we had to label a protagonist or a main character, that character is called the man, and we're seeing the man's journey from the start of the show to the end of the show. And the man has given himself the task to create a piece of art, whatever that turns out to be. And the other parts of him that are in the show, and the other parts of me, other than the man, are the artist, the fraud, the clown, and the human being. And exploring how each of those characters are different from each other and how they do different things from each other. And so if the man can create a piece of art without the artist, without, the fraud needing to, serve his purpose and just other stuff like that, then he knows that he's meant for something. His life has purpose. And he's racing a clock. And if that clock runs out and he can't create anything in that time, then his life ends. So it kind of weaves and navigates through different moments of that. And it's an interesting thing to write a show that takes place inside your own mind. So can get a little wild at times. But yeah, that's sort of the main journey that we take and that we see being taken in this show. But yeah, it always just kind of it always felt right. It just felt like the move. I just felt called to do it. I think what I want the audience to most get out of my play is to get a glimpse of, even just a glimpse or a glimmer, even a slight feeling of what it's like to be someone who gets very lost, and to see at least a little bit of how that journey can feel through theater, and what that can look like even on the inside through theater, and to people who perhaps are on or have been on a similar journey to mine with their mental health, with their feelings about their purpose, their existence, their meaning, their worthiness, their self-love, their lack of self-love, whatever it might be. Those who see a bit of their story, or at least something they can connect to in that way in this show. A reminder, or perhaps the very first lesson ever to them, that they are not alone, that they are not the only ones who feel that way. And that a lot of healing, at the end of the day, a lot of healing can come from exploring your emotions and exploring your own story. A lot of healing can come from storytelling. There's a whole sort of movement I'm doing with this show called the Storytelling Heals Movement. And it's very much in its infancy right now. But it's about, but at its core, it's about, healing ourselves and perhaps healing the world by using story and through story, and just how powerful that can be. Um, so yeah, I want folks to know perhaps a little bit of what it's like, and other folks to know, um, that, yeah, they're not alone, and they're not the only ones who feel this, um, and that whatever sort of situation they might be in terms of how they're feeling, where their life is, that is not a permanent like stop. That is just a another, even if it's huge, it's just another stop on the journey, on the big road trip of life, and that there's more to come, and that they can make it to the other side. Well, I think people must go to my show because it's not just a story that I've been told needs to be told, and that can connect to lots of different people, lots of different experiences. But it's also a mission. So for as long as I perform my show, for my lifetime, for as long as I decide to perform it, half of all the profits that would be made from this show are going to get donated to a mental health charity organization foundation that's doing really, really awesome and impactful and like meaningful work in the worlds of mental health awareness, suicide prevention, and overall mental wellness. I'm supporting the JED Foundation, JED Foundation, and they're a foundation that supports struggling teens and young adults who are struggling with mental health issues. So I think folks must see my show for the story that it is, but also to be a part of the mission, to be a part of the cause, to be a part of the Storytelling Heals movement in its very first hurrah, its very first foray into existence. Because they can make a direct impact not only on my life from supporting my show and seeing my show and hearing the story, but also they can, with the purchase of a ticket, they could have a direct impact on somebody who really needs help, in the movement as a whole. So yeah, I think it's very important. I think it's a very important thing that this story gets out there and this movement keeps moving and keeps growing. And that's kind of what I feel like I'm doing. I'm sharing a piece of my soul with whoever decides to come and see it. And I hope many folks do come and see it, because I think story and the impact and the power of story is needed more than ever today. And I think my show can at least be a little shred of that. And I've been told, I keep being told that it can move people. And so I think I have to finally have the security in myself to believe that. My name is Christian Ty Edwards. My show is called The Sad Life of a Happy Man. I would love to see any and all of y'all there. And remember that you're not only supporting me when you come see the show, you're supporting the JED Foundation, you're supporting the Storytelling Heals movement, you're becoming a part of the movement for mental health awareness, suicide prevention, and making a difference in the lives of those who are struggling, and most often struggling in silence. So yeah, I would be truly honored. To see all y'all in the audience.
People should go to my play because I think it's going to be unlike anything else there. I think the subject matter is going to be fairly unique. I think the way that I tackle it is fairly unique. And because I think it's a really, really interesting, unique, and often hilarious and heartbreaking show. I think I think it encompasses a wide range of human emotions that, regardless of upbringing or spiritual inclination, it can be related to by pretty much anybody. And I think there's something in it for everybody. And I think there are things that people will find funny no matter what. I think that ultimately it's an engaging show that will leave people asking questions as they drive home. Hi, I'm Dan Prevett. I'm the writer and performer of Missionary Positions, a solo show. If you want to learn a little bit more about it, watch the rest of this interview. I had the idea for a concept called Missionary Positions for a long time, which I originally had only conceived of as a book. I had planned on writing a memoir about my life as a evangelical missionary kid. I knew in talking to people throughout my experience, I'll go back quickly and I'll say this. When I started doing stand-up, I had a number of experiences when I was really young, when I was in my early 20s, where I would get on stage and I would tell jokes about different parts of my life, or I would make jokes about being really big or really tall or whatever, and I would make all these jokes. And then I would go have conversations with people and I would start talking to them about my upbringing. And every once in a while, somebody would be like, why don't you talk about this? And I was just like, oh, I don't know. I didn't think it was interesting to other people. But I think the truth is I just didn't know how to talk about it. When I was in my early 20s, I didn't have the taste or the craft or the sense of self, the sense of confidence to confidently approach my own story with any kind of artistic point of view. That took time to develop as I performed in other ways over the course of my 20s. Like a lot of people in their late 20s, the thing that forced me to write the show, I think, was ultimately an existential crisis. I had been pursuing fairly traditional acting in Los Angeles for a long time as a commercial actor. I had done a number of independent projects, indie films, web series, but I really was not gaining any kind of traction as a performer. And I was very quickly losing passion and steam for continuing to be an actor. Despite the encouragement and love of a lot of really good friends and other creative people that I admired and respected, I was just very quickly losing hope in myself being able to make any kind of artistic life for myself. I decided to leave my agency and stop acting when I was about 29 years old, which I believe was the right decision. And it also left me with this point of like, well, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do with my life? Because I'm a bartender and I'm 29. So there's quite possibly a lot of years left to live, and I don't know what to do with them. And this idea of writing this memoir, Missionary Positions, kind of returned to me and was like, well, maybe you should really give writing a try. You've never really tried to be a writer. And honestly, I made a post. I made a joking post on social media about, I'm going to start writing my tell-all memoir about my missionary upbringing, Missionary Positions. And my now director commented underneath it and said, you should consider doing this as a show. And it was really that comment that was like, oh, yeah, I guess that's allowed. I guess I don't need anybody to hire me to do that. And it would be way shorter than writing a book. So, okay. And I met with her and I started talking to her and developing the process with her. And it very naturally started to grow out of that. Once I started watering the idea of like Missionary Positions as a solo show, it took root and started to grow naturally. Missionary Positions is my autobiographical story. My name is Dan. I'm a recovering evangelical. I was born to parents who were already committed to become Christian missionaries. Very quickly after I was born, we moved to Bangkok, Thailand. We then lived in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. We lived in Bucharest, Romania for a time in my high school years. And I lived in America for a few years in there just to keep me relatable. The subject of the show has mostly to do with fundamentalist religiosity, fundamentalist Christianity, and the effects that that can have on a young life. The subtitle of the show is Missionary Positions, a Recovering Christian's Guide to Getting Lost, because I was raised with such a strong distinction between people being saved or people being lost. And the show is really about my personal discovery and my moving away from fundamentalist religion and away from conservative evangelicalism, away from Christianity as I knew it at all, and becoming lost. And in becoming lost, ultimately finding a sense of freedom and spiritual depth beyond anything that had ever been presented to me while I was strictly Christian. What do I want the audience to get out of the play? My hope is that my audience will leave Missionary Positions feeling a broader sense of hope, a broader sense of peace, that no matter where they are in life, they are not lost, and they are perhaps exactly where they need to be. I want them to leave with a sense of community and with a sense that no matter what they're going through, they're not going through it alone. I want people to leave talking about certain more controversial themes in the show, and I want people to leave repeating the jokes that they like the best. I think the thing that will surprise the audience the most is that while I certainly pull no punches in regards to the evangelical church as I knew it growing up, and I am a lover of really, really letting conservative American Christianity have it, and I really have no qualms about offending that particular tribe, because that is the tribe that raised me. So I feel that is my birthright. But I think the thing that will surprise the audience the most is that it is not a hateful, angry show. And I do not intend to leave anybody with a notion of rage or indignation or a desire for vengeance. I think the most surprising thing about it is that I am authentically somebody who believes that I did get well and truly lost. I'm a backslider. I have fallen away from the Christianity I was raised with. Many of my peers from my childhood would not consider me a Christian, but I still have a very, very open, spiritual, and frankly, theological orthodoxy that allows me to engage with the world as a spiritual person in a very, very open and honest way. People should go to my play because I think it's going to be unlike anything else there. I think the subject matter is going to be fairly unique. I think the way that I tackle it is fairly unique. And because I think it's a really, really interesting, unique, and often hilarious and heartbreaking show. I think it encompasses a wide range of human emotions that, regardless of upbringing or spiritual inclination, it can be related to by pretty much anybody. And I think there's something in it for everybody. And I think there are things that people will find funny no matter what. I think that ultimately it's an engaging show that will leave people asking questions as they drive home. My hopes and dreams for this production are far and wide. Of course, I feel like I have all of the stereotypical hopes and dreams, but my very, very tangible hope and dream for this show is I would love to do a tour of Missionary Positions through a pretty good portion of the American Bible Belt. I would love to take this show to the Midwest, to the South, to the parts of the country where I have lived and where so many of my friends have lived or still live, where evangelical Christianity is still such a prominent spirituality, and honestly, probably always will be. And the show is not about dissolving that or destroying that. My hope is that I can bring the show to other people like me who were disillusioned and broken and hurting, and offer a little bit of encouragement and a little bit of inspiration and maybe a fun, entertaining night of theater that leaves them saying, I'm going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We're all going to be okay. My name is Dan Prevette, and my show is Missionary Positions, a recovering Christian's guide to getting lost. You can find all tickets at dandoeswords.com/show. Your soul is fine. Save your seat.
I think that people should come to see me in Keeper because we hold ourselves back a lot, especially here in this town. And we go, maybe I'll go to that. I'll see how I feel. I see how I feel. And I find that when we commit to each other, when our word is our bond, when we go, I'm going to go there. I'm going to support you. I'm going to be there. I'm going to have an experience. I'm going to meet somebody new. I'm going to see something I wouldn't normally do. That is the beauty. That is where growth happens. We should always be challenging ourselves. Get out of your darn comfort zone. Oh, there's no growth there. Sure, it's comfortable, but then you're just looking at the same things, you know? So yes, everybody should go see Keeper, see these wonderful shows. My goodness. Yeah. Hi, I'm Michelle Murphy, and I wrote my solo show, Keeper. If you'd like to learn more about my wonderful solo journey, give a little listen. Keeper is my first solo show, and the idea for it came, I'm going to take you back in time to my senior year of college, 1998. And in order to graduate, we all had to do a 15-minute solo show. And I didn't do it. At the time, I was just like, nope, I'm not doing that. I just couldn't wrap my brain around it. I was, again, back to my fear of writing things that weren't perfect. I just didn't do it. And I carried that regret with me all the way up until 2022. And that's a true story. The regret that I feel like I felt like I let myself down. I let myself off the hook. And it took me a long time to understand like why I did that. And so cut to 2022, I had started to really work on my mindset during the pandemic and really go from this fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And I signed up for this wonderful career coaching with Lynn Downey Braswell. It's the work of art coaching. And day one, she's like, okay, what are we doing? You're going to pick a project and you're going to do it. And I was like, oh, well, I've always wanted to do a solo show. And I immediately wanted to take those words back because I put them out there. And she's like, great. Okay. So we're picking the theater and the date and you'll find a director and off you go. And I was like, okay, here we go. Because what I learned by carrying this regret around with me is whatever fantasy I've created in my mind about the worst possible scenario happening if I do a solo show and fail, not doing a solo show was worse. Living with that regret was worse. So that was where Keeper started. So when I hired my wonderful director, I thought I was going to write this wonderful show about all the characters I could do and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, nope, hold up. This one's about you. Your first one's a memoir. And I was like, no. So I started to go back in time and I started to go back to my childhood. And it was really fascinating. My story is like, it's a hero's journey story. So I started to go back in time into this really wild, rich childhood that I had. And I started to explore stories that I have always told myself that I believe that were part of the fabric of me, right? And I learned that shame, some misbelief, some lies that I have believed since I was like 6 were not true. I could change that. I could take care of this young version of myself and tell her story where she is now, which is this strong, confident woman that I am today. So I went back to lead her to her journey here. So that is where Keeper started. And my story has several painful moments in it, but it's all told through my beloved time at summer camp. So there's a lot of fun in the show too. I do a lot of singing, and I take the audience with me on this wonderful journey as I weave them through periods of my life. When I did Keeper the first time, I thought it was going to be a one and done, right? One and done. Whoo, I did it. I can let my professor in 1998 know I finally did my solo show. So when I took my first bow, I was like, oh. And what happened after that was I had an entire audience of loved ones jump to their feet and show me so much love. I was blown away by it. And I just thought, I was completing my bucket list. And it was really at the encouragement of not only my director and my loved ones, but this other small voice inside of me started to grow and go, why don't we do another one? Let's do another one. What if we do another one? Because I performed Keeper for the first time in September of 2022. I performed Keeper the second time as part of the White Fire Solo Fest here in Sherman Oaks, which is huge, which is a 50 person solo fest over the course of several months. So that was the second time that I did it. And after I did that, I was very honored to receive one of 12 Best of Fest awards. So that was my second time doing it. And again, it was my confidence growing. It was me taking care of myself and going, can I bring this? And there's some fear in there, but that's sort of where I'm at in my life. Fear may always be there, but it's not in charge anymore. And that's also part of my solo show. It's part of my solo show. Who am I if I set that fear down? Who am I if I set that shame down? I'm going to find out. I would love for the audience to feel the way that I feel about my show. It's reflective of a childhood that our formative years where we go through so much and we're not even able to understand it all. Our brains are still forming. And it's amazing the amount of things that get stuck in you and that you carry with you through the rest of your life. And I think that shared experience is what makes this feel so special, is that the audience themselves can reflect on their own journey, shared circumstances they may find in my story. But more than anything, I did something and am doing something that scares me to do. But darn it, I'm doing it anyway. And I think that message, if that is a baton that I can keep passing to people, I'm going to keep doing it. Go, be brave, be, confident in your thoughts. Put yourself out there. It doesn't matter what age you are. My goodness, this is it. This is life. There is no dress rehearsal. So let's express ourselves, darn it. And thank you for coming to see my show. I really appreciate it. What am I looking for when I'm doing my show? there is something in when I perform where the part of me is present, and then there's another part of me that's sort of watching myself, right? It's how you can take in, like, oh, I'm going too fast, or oh, that didn't land. You know what I mean? Like you're sort of self-judging yourself, right? Which is really complicated. Look what I'm doing with my hands. This looks very complicated. So what I have really loved is when I can get rid of that. I'm not watching myself. I am 9 years old. I am on my camp bus and I am headed to the greatest place on earth. That kind of intimacy, that kind of proximity, I share completely. Shame, vulnerability, joy, pain. I love that we are going to go on this little magic ride together. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. When I'm done performing, sometimes I go, did I say everything? Because I don't even remember. It was like I just ejected the tape. And the only thing that tells me that I did my job that day is when I can look out in the audience and sort of see that collective experience. It's magic. I think that people should come to see me because we hold ourselves back a lot, especially here in this town. And we go, maybe I'll go to that. I'll see how I feel. I see how I feel. And I find that when we commit to each other, when our word is our bond, when we go, I'm going to go there. I'm going to support you. I'm going to be there. I'm going to have an experience. I'm going to meet somebody new. I'm going to see something I wouldn't normally do. That is the beauty. That is where growth happens. We should always be challenging ourselves. Get out of your darn comfort zone. Oh, there's no growth there. Sure, it's comfortable, but then you're just looking at the same things, you know? So yes, everybody should go see Keeper, see these wonderful shows. My goodness. Yeah. I will mention that Keeper really is only a certain part of my life. I take the audience from like I'm age 6 and I think I get up to 16. It's a small period of my life. And what I want to say about that, I don't even mention my wonderful husband of almost 12 years. I don't mention my beautiful 9-year-old son. But they're with me. And what I did do is my son, Ford, does my intro voiceover. So he's the one who asks everybody in the audience to make sure their cell phones are silenced, who'll tell them any little bits of information. And then he ends with, break a leg, mommy. And I got to tell you, I set myself up for success with that one because listening to that sweet little voice telling me, be brave, mommy. It's what I do. I am Michelle Murphy. I am the writer, producer, and performer of Keeper, directed by Juliet Jeffers. Please come and see me. Come.
I think people
should go to our musical if they want to laugh.
Yeah.
If they want to feel, if they want to really experience something that is poignant and funny.
Yeah, I think that what we've created is actually pretty unique. Obviously, it rests on the shoulders of all the other musical comedies that come before it and content and things that we've watched. And people should definitely come to our show because I don't think they've seen anything like this yet. And if you want something funny and light, and if you want to leave feeling elated and joyful, then definitely come to our show.
Yeah. And definitely we feel it is a mostly unique experience. It definitely has, because it's immersive and you're really part of it. It's not just a sit there and watch us. You really feel like you're in the action. It's a different experience.
House lights are on the whole time.
Yeah.
So you're going to be in it, in the workshop.
Hi, I'm Griffith Frank.
And I'm Lindsay Gitter.
And we are the writing team behind the new musical about self-help called It's Your Fault. And we would love for you to come see it, to look it up, to find more information about it, because we think it's pretty funny. And we all want to laugh, especially when it comes to ourselves. So hope to see you there.
And if you're interested in hearing more about it, please watch this video. I think musical theater is so unique. Well, this is one of many, many, many reasons, but this is just the one that surfaced, because music can express what words cannot on their own. And I had a great acting teacher once tell me that the songs are the subtext. It's what you can't say out loud, so you sing it. And I feel like music is universal, even if you don't have lyrics, depending on the melody and the structure and the tempo, it's universal. Like you know, across all cultures, all languages, when a song is sad or when a song is happy or when a song is anxious. And that kind of communication just can't be, it's just not the same as just talking back and forth. And even plays that are translated, right? If you have a play translated from Spanish to English, something is lost in translation. But when you have a song, that I don't think as much is lost, because you have the music carrying that emotional reality to everybody who's listening.
And for me, what separates musicals is that, well, so, and this is more of a technical answer, because she'll answer with more of the artistic answer. For me, the technical thing is it builds in another layer of craft, of logic, of depth to the universe that you're in, and once again produces something that is unlike anything else. You are building in this very shared common experience. Everybody likes, I think most people like music, but I would say that most people have a form of music that they respond to. And so adding that in a very surreal way keeps it, when you're doing a play, I imagine, or a movie is like it, you're watching it and you're really supposed to suspend disbelief. With a play, okay, you're in this, what is on stage is probably not real, probably. And in musical theater, it's like we take that to an extreme, and the ability to do that well is so incredible. And I strive to do what the greats, even come close to what the greats have done in terms of creating that ridiculously impossible experience and making you totally buy into it. Not only buy into it, empathize with it, connect with it. That's an incredible thing.
The idea for this musical,
for It's Your Fault.
For It's Your Fault. So it's sort of a long story, but it's very silly. A friend of ours was performing in this showcase. So the way it works is every performer gets 10 minutes to show their work. Some people sang, some people did a monologue. It was 10-minute slots, kind of like an open mic. So we're all there expecting to see a play or a show or a song. And this guy comes up and he uses his 10 minutes to test drive life coaching skills. Like, he called on people from the audience and walked them through questions and claimed that in the 10 minutes he could change somebody's life. And I was
change their mind.
Change their something.
Change their mind.
It was weird. But that whole experience was so disarming. And when Griff and I were in the car driving on the way home, I said, that would be an amazing musical. I said, how amazing would it be if people went into thinking they were going to see a show and then they get sucked into this workshop? So that's kind of the origin of it. And the reason why I felt like we had to write it is, being an artist in LA, I think there's a lot of good in the self-help world, and there's a lot of ick in the self-help world. There's a lot of people taking advantage. You don't need a license to be a coach, right? So a lot of my friends and colleagues and coworkers would get sucked into these workshops where they just climbed this ladder and paid more and more money. And it just felt like multi-level marketing, and they were just taking advantage of people at their most vulnerable. So this show felt like yes, it's very silly. It's 100% a comedy. It's called It's Your Fault. We're taking that to an extreme. But at the same time, a lot of the content of the show is inspired and takes directly from some of these workshops.
Yeah.
So it's not too far from the truth of what's happening in some of these places.
And I think that it, for me, why it felt so important that we write this now is it is relevant and topical to the culture that we live in, where, there's this sort of continual existential movement of people, seeking out higher purposes or goals. Yeah, wellness. And when something like that is enforced, you got to make fun of it. You just have to.
Yeah.
And not because, it's bad. There is amazing things with it. It's because it has to stand up to that. We have to be able to explore ourselves and topics like that. It's an important side of who we are and what we do as societies. So,
and it's good to look at that stuff with a critical eye, especially when that translates to puppets and poop jokes and just all the silliness of a musical comedy, of a farce, really.
So the musical begins with two life coaches, Pete and Robin, who are obviously in a little bit of a difficult situation when they first come out, but then they sort of, on their rocky start, begin this seminar that they've been running intro workshops for. And the intro workshop is, instead of being a play in Fringe, it's a transformational workshop where we've invited the audience to participate because they all want to change you want to change your life 180, all the stuff that isn't working, and and find out what your purpose is and why your family members won't take you seriously, etc. And then what goes from this?
So basically it's the two life coaches, Pete and Robin, who are dating, are running this workshop because their book, It's Your Fault, Finding Freedom Through Pointing Fingers, is about to be released. So what should be this celebratory final workshop ultimately reveals the cracks in their relationship and the ways in which they're not following their own teachings. So by the end, we don't want to give away too much, but
let's just say it's flawed people trying to claim that they know everything.
Right. And trying to, and then, part of that process is walking people through the activities. So we can talk about the 3 pillars, I think. The 3 pillars are: it's your fault, don't trust yourself, and trauma doesn't matter. So those are kind of the 3, twists on very classic, like you can create your own reality, like that kind of thing that we've turned into our dysfunctional
vibrate into the life that you want,
right.
And it can totally work for people. This isn't necessarily saying that all of that isn't,
that there
valid,
isn't merit.
But at the same time, it's more about the people pushing this narrative. Like, well, who are they? Right. What are they even taking their own advice and exploring that, so
yeah.
For all of us, like, talking about it, we do it is a gentle nudging at it. It's not, like I said, we're not taking down the wellness industry. It is very much
we've benefited from it.
Right, totally.
We have our people, our coaches, our therapists, and we meditate and we benefit from all of that. And I think because we see the good, when we see people who use that good to take advantage of other people, that's really what we're talking about. It's not necessarily the content itself. It's the coaches. That's really what we're commenting on.
So what we want the audience to get out of is a lot of fun. We want them to have tons of fun and laugh a lot. And then a little bit of introspection, like, well, what have I fallen for lately? What have I maybe bought into that sounds really good, but maybe doesn't hold up to some scrutiny? You know what I mean? What have I been listening to that, at first I could go with, but then when I think about it more, I'm going, well, I don't know about that. And then learning to trust the deeper sense of, not skepticism, but just learning to trust yourself more. So we hope to bring that to the audience, I think, for one.
Really just the opposite of all the 3 pillars of the workshop. And yeah, really, it's such a silly, silly show. I just, our opening night, we had so much laughter. And, when you're writing a comedy, you have to just trust your own taste, and you don't really know if it's funny until people laugh. So I think having that laughter and that joy and that silliness, and people participated more than we thought they would, which was such a wonderful surprise. So I think just having people leaving feeling joyful and silly, that's really the main goal. And then just remembering that everybody who writes, like behind Atomic Habits is just a guy, behind The Power of Now is just a guy, behind The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up is a woman, is a person. They're all just people delivering these ideas that they've ultimately made up, So I'd like to think that after watching this, people will remember that and know that they're allowed to cherry pick. They don't need to trust an all-knowing guru to tell them what they need to do, that they already know, and it's already inside of them. I think people
should go to our musical if they want to laugh.
Yeah.
If they want to feel, if they want to really experience something that is poignant and funny.
Yeah, I think that what we've created is actually pretty unique. Obviously, it rests on the shoulders of all the other musical comedies that come before it and content and things that we've watched. And people should definitely come to our show because I don't think they've seen anything like this yet. And if you want something funny and light, and if you want to leave feeling elated and joyful, then definitely come to our show.
Yeah, and definitely we feel it is a mostly unique experience. It definitely has, because it's immersive and you're really part of it. It's not just a sit there and watch us. You really feel like you're in the action. It's a different experience.
House lights are on the whole time.
Yeah.
So you're going to be in it, in the workshop. I don't know why this feels so, it's really important, but Griff and I really do everything together. I think I'm just so proud of this collaboration. And for us, we split everything down the middle, book, lyrics, music, regardless of how the scales might tip at any given project. It's just important, I think, to just communicate that we are a team and we do everything together. And I'm just so grateful to have found such a wonderful co-producer, writing partner, collaborator, voice teacher, fiance, just see, we wear a lot of hats in this team.
Yeah, it is, it is fun. This is one of my favorite things to do in life, is to embark upon these creative endeavors and then see them take form is infinitely satisfying to me. So, I wish everybody the luck and the drive to find that for themselves, because experiencing it, especially with somebody who you obviously are very closely connected to, is unlike many things in this life. So
yeah, as my mom says, dare to suck. It's a lot harder to do something poorly than to not do it at all.
Are you saying I suck?
No. I am Lindsay Gitter.
I'm Griffith Frank.
And please come join us for It's Your Fault, a new musical farce poking fun at the self-help world. We would love to see you there. See you at the theater.
Hi, I am Paige Wilhide. I am the writer, star of, and producer of Breakup Addict. And it is a solo show where I play over 20 different characters, including the voices in my head and some of my ex-boyfriends. If you want to learn more, watch the show. I think when there's like a really true piece of art that comes through you, it can't be ignored. And that's kind of how I ended up writing Breakup Addict. So I went through two quite tumultuous heartbreaks back to back with very unavailable people. Like they were very different, but also had so many similarities to these two situations. And as I was realizing that that I was the common denominator in both of those situations, I was like, okay, I need to change something. It's not them. It's like, what can I change in order to be better and have better relationships? So I started going to meetings as part of a 12-step program for sex and love addiction. And I worked with a sponsor, and my sponsor told me that for the first 30 days, I was not to interact with any love interests at all, which generally for me are men. And so I was in withdrawal from my favorite drug, men. And I did that for 30 days and then 60 days. And it really took me into an identity crisis. Like I realized that it's like I had piled my identity on top of this idea that I am valuable, I am loved if a man loves me, if somebody else approves of me and likes me. And when that when that core belief crumbled, everything else did too. So I spent a lot of time in isolation. I was in a depression. I was eating a lot. I was just trying to find other vices to kind of fill the void that I didn't have, because I had all this, I was not talking to men. And during that time, I started writing. That was a way that I really tried to cope with some of these feelings. And I wrote down my stories. I wrote down what I was going through. And then I met my coach, Jessica Lynn Johnson, and she helped me piece all the puzzle pieces together into a solo show. And I really channeled all of that excess power and energy that I would have just put out into the world, into trying to be in a relationship or get love or sex. All that energy I could now channel into my art and into Breakup Addict. So Breakup Addict opens with me, my character of Paige, sitting in a 12-step meeting, in her very first one, and is having is kind of seeing herself for the first time in a really eye-opening and painful way, and seeing oh, you all are sex and love addicts, and I think I might be too, but I don't want to be. And so there's that admission that starts the show, and then it travels through different stories, how she got there, and then eventually looking at some of her patterns in relationships. And the thread of the story is it tracks through the 12 characteristics of sex and love addiction. And even if you don't consider yourself a sex and love addict, even if you don't consider yourself an addict in general, the characteristics of sex and love addiction, I think, are something that everybody can relate to in some way or another. So those are really ways that I like to use. They're like pillars that I like to use throughout the show, anchors to support people in seeing themselves and their own patterns and their own relationships in my story. So it tracks through that, and then eventually I come to a realization that I need to be on my own for a little while. And I make a really hard choice to set boundaries with some of these men, and to really take care of myself and go on a self-love journey. And it kind of comes around the other side for me, loving myself again. It's really my hope that every audience member walks away feeling changed in some way. And when I say changed, it's like, oh my God, Paige saw a part of me that I have not wanted to talk about or share, or that I didn't really want the world to see. And she gave me so much love and approval for that thing that I can now work with it. I can now like take that, that deep fear that I had that I would be alone forever. This is just an example, but like, that deep fear that I had that I would be single and alone forever. And I can now share that with somebody, or I can go get therapy, or like I can work with a coach and get some support. Or I can like read a book or listen to a podcast, right? So I want people to walk away feeling like a part of them got really touched and fully seen and loved in my show. And it's that would be like the greatest gift ever. What I've uncovered on my healing journey is we heal when the parts of ourselves that feel the most unlovable are seen and fully loved. So the parts of ourselves where we feel shame, or we feel guilt for walking away from that relationship, or we feel so alone because everybody around us is engaged and getting married and having babies and we're still single. So these are just some examples, but it's like the little tiny parts of us where we feel like that we can't love fully, right? Healing happens when someone else gives us permission to love that part. And that's ultimately what I want to create with this show, is giving people permission to love parts of themselves that they previously would be hiding or ignoring or trying to run away from. And I think that is how you take pain and turn it into power, rather than taking pain and suffering, choosing the suffering route. This is like taking pain and turning it into power. I did that through my show, through writing down my stories. I was in such a dark time, and I really alchemized that into this beautiful, like, moving piece of art. And I think the art is just going to continue living on. It's going to have it's going to become its own body of work. I don't know exactly how, because it's not up to me anymore. It's really up to like the people who see the show and the people who are moved by it and what they get from it, and being able to like carry on the message. But at the end of the day, it's like, really, can I love the parts of me that I think are the most unlovable? My desire for when I am on stage is to be so fully present in my body that I'm not thinking, that I am just like letting the lines and the characters, oh my gosh, I'm getting chills and like tears are coming to my eyes as I'm thinking about this, but like just letting it move through me in the most present way. Like there's I talk about higher power and God and the universe, in my show, and being connected to spirit. And I think one of the reasons that I love performing so much is because that's when I feel most connected to spirit, is in that moment. And so, my hope is that I really get to fully be out of my head and fully just like channel the art through me. If you've ever experienced heartbreak, if you've ever been in a relationship where you are wondering where you went, if you've ever left a relationship wondering who you are, anybody who's dating, like this is really for people who feel like they are wanting to be seen in their relationships and in their dating life. You must go see Breakup Addict if you have ever been through heartbreak. If you've ever walked away from a relationship and wondered, what happened? Where did I go? Who am I now? How am I going to rebuild from this place? If you've ever been dating and you wake up and you're like, what am I doing? How do I do this? If you've been resistant to dating, if you've ever been scared to put yourself out there and be vulnerable with somebody, this show is for anybody who is in relationships, wants to be in relationships, has just come out of a relationship. It is a really powerful way to be entertained, right? You're gonna laugh, you're gonna feel things, you're gonna cry. It's a really entertaining play that also will leave you with something. It's like you're not just going to a play for 75 minutes and then you leave and go to dinner and like forget the next day. This play like lives on through you, and it will continue to bring its lessons and bestow its gifts upon you as you're digesting it, after the show. And I really encourage you to bring a friend to it so you can talk about it after, because there's so much to get, and you definitely won't regret coming to see Breakup Addict. I'm Paige Will Hyde, and I am going to be performing my solo show, Breakup Addict, and I can't wait to see you there. You can also visit breakupaddict.com for more information about the show, upcoming performances and workshops, and you can follow me on Instagram at Paige Will Hyde. It's the best way to talk to me if you want to get in touch.
People who like theater for young audience should definitely come. And I think theater for young audience as a concept need to be expanded, because I think theater audience should be fun for both kids and adults. So adults should come too. I just want to say that this story, although it's a coming of age story of this 9-year-old little girl, it's also about the other characters, and each character has a lot of personality and has their own storyline. For example, the grandma, for example, the mom, for example, the bird columnist that a little Zhigong loves reading. For example, the adult version of our protagonist. For example, the cat hamster. Like you even get to know about the origin story and the whole story of a little hamster, and there's also a dialogues of these two passengers on the bus, and so it's not a classic 1-act or 3-act play. I would say it's more like a photo album or a constellation, with many moments and many characters, that's connected by a central theme, and they're all in this photo album where you can just flip through and you're like, oh wow, this scene is the style is overexposed, and this scene is more saturated color, and this scene is it's intimate and it's a little bit sad, and this photo has a lot of puppets in it, so you're just like flipping this album. I'm sure one of the picture will hit you.
Genuine answer is I think this is a very private story that is universal in its theme. And I believe that people will find moments in this play that will truly impress them and live with them even after they leave this theater. Hi, my name is Gefei Liu. If you want to learn more about my play Birds and the Curiosity, written by me and Olivia Sheen, please check out this video.
Hi, I'm Olivia Singh. I'm the director and playwright for the new Theater for Audience and API piece, Birds and the Curiosity, 鸟与好奇号. It's a coming-of-age story of the 9-year-old Chinese girl and her time-traveling future self, and many birds, and a singing hamster. Want to know more? Come see our show. The idea come from a talk between me and my co-writer, and Gefei was talking about how, like, sometimes she just think about the issue that she has now and start blaming on her childhood. It's a thing we all do, you know? We're like, this happened because this happened in the past, so now I'm this. I'm not doing this right now because I never was able to do this, or like it's limiting though, and it's not being present. So we're like, what if this adult has the same problem as we have? We're like, well, all our problem is because something we experienced in our childhood. But like, what if this adult go back to childhood and realize, oh, I can, instead of helping her, I can actually learn more from her. Like, if actually I possess all the qualities in my authentic self and I forgot them on the way of growing up. And I wasn't this unfortunate child. I had the support of my family and friend. Also, I'm speaking this in the individual cases. I'm not just, when I say we, it's like the playwright. I'm not saying everyone had a happy childhood with support of family friends. But I do want to say that how to survive our childhood now that we're adult. It's not about blaming the childhood, being obsessed with what had happened. It's about being present. And so the protagonist, the future, the adult self, the adult version of our protagonist travel back and then travel back to her present time and started to think that the way I survived my childhood, now that I'm adult, it's to be an adult and to be myself and love who I am, find who I am and love who I am, and move forward instead of moving backwards. So we wrote like many versions of this story. There's a few of them, the earlier stages of this story, it's told from this adult perspective, looking back to childhood. And then we're like, no. It's not, wait, but this, has she figured out? She figured out where's she gonna go? But we honestly, we don't really know. We don't really know yet. And because this piece is really personal, want to stay true because we haven't figured out. We're still 20 something year old. We're like, we could write from the how we were, how we felt, and the emotion, the ecstasy, and as well as the calamity we felt as a kid for tiny little things, from sharing a snack to like losing a favorite sticker, and just like this tiny little thing create such huge emotion in us, and we're like, we remember all of that, we could write all of that, and we could let the younger self teach the adult self something.
The themes are multiple, but I think the most important one is to find your authentic self. And other minor themes includes a children's creative agency and the loss of your loved ones, and also how to accept yourself as you are.
Why it's my puppets, marionettes are better actors. It's because they have no ego. And it's true. They do things because they do things. And they don't really care how their hair look like. And a lot of human actor can't do that, me included. It's we just naturally, we always carry an ego. Puppets don't. And when I'm manipulating puppet, I sort of let go of my ego too. Because, people are not looking at you, people are looking at the puppet. So now with this piece, Birds and the Curiosity, why do we want to include puppets in this piece? Because it's really about this 9-year-old girl going through life and encounter some calamity in the first time. Bullying, body image issue, can't fit in a piece of costume. Why are my friends laughing at me? Why did Nana pass away? And why is my pet hamster also going to die at some point? And why do people have to leave? Why do I have to lose things? Why can't I be happy all the time? But she's dealing with such a childish and innocent and joyful and hopeful way. Like when she feels caged because the Chinese teacher misbuys control. So at the day, she saw ostrich free running on the highway. And is it imagination or is it real? We don't know. But that's how kids see the world, right? They see the possibility of the world, and they see it with you could say unfiltered, or with a filter that makes it even more true to how the world should be experienced. It's just like we wanted to free. It is like the wonderment. It's so important to this piece. So we thought, oh, you know what? Puppet. We can't hire a real ostrich but we could make a giant full body puppet that's a shiny ostrich that walk through the aisle of the audience. So to make it just a little bit more immersive. And so the audience is invited to little Robin's, little Zhigeng's part of the world, and how audience see how she see the world. That where audience is not caged, where the hamster singing, and where the what else do where there's like after Nana after Nana died, a bird visited us, and it sort of sounded like Nana. So it's about, again, it's about dealing trauma. But you know, theater has always have a soft way to deal with trauma. It's magic. And also there's a toy theater section in the play that is about an adaptation of Ugly Duckling, because Ugly Duckling kind of teaches kids a wrong message. Like, you couldn't bully someone because what? Because they will turn into a beautiful white swan? No, just you should be kind to someone no matter how they look. And you know what? It's okay to just be an ugly duckling, because it's not about being ugly. It's just Ugly Duckling is not ugly. It's Ugly Duckling just looks different from the brother and sisters. And it's okay to be different. Don't have to be swan. So the story of Ugly Duckling should be about discovering who you are and who you always have been. You don't have to have a magical makeover or transformation. And so our 9-year-old protagonist rewrite the story in the play. So it's a play in a play, and put on this little toy theater with two of her best friends. That's about ducklings, and they learn about each other, and they learn about how everyone's different from one another, which makes us all the same.
I think I want the audience, when they are walking out of the theater, I want them to feel like, wow, this is theater. This sounds a little bit ambitious, but I want to redefine theater for them, to make them feel like, oh, theater isn't just Shakespeare. Theater isn't just serious, expensive stuff. Theater is accessible, it's fun.
What I want the audience to get out of this production is some laughs, some other emotions, some laughs. What I want my audience to get out of this piece is an experience that make them kind of sometimes happy, sometimes moved, sometimes kind of sad, but eventually some hopes. And to all the kids that will see the show, I want to say, if anyone can overturn this capitalist and hierarchical and bad theater system, this and make more experimental and beautiful and heartfelt pieces, is the young, is the next generation. And honestly, not only in theater, I hope the kids will see this play and feel like I could change the world. And I hope the adults see this play and feel like I can still change the world.
I'm really looking forward to hear some feedback from the audience, especially the kids. We're now marketing the show as a family-friendly show, and there will be a lot of kids coming to see our show. And this is quite a new experience for me, because this is like my first kids-friendly show, and I think they will have some completely different reaction than adults, and that will be fun.
People who like theater for young audience should definitely come. And I think theater for young audience as a concept need to be expanded because I think theater audience should be fun for both kids and adults, so adults should come too. What else? I just want to say that this story, although it's a coming of age story of this 9-year-old little girl, it's also about the other characters, and each character has a lot of personality and has their own storyline. For example, the grandma, for example, the mom, for example, the bird columnist that a little Zhigong loves reading. For example, the adult version of our protagonist. For example, the cat hamster. Like you even get to know about the origin story and the whole story of a little hamster, and there's also a dialogues of these two passengers on the bus, and so it's not a classic 1-act or 3-act play. I would say it's more like a photo album or a constellation, with many moments and many characters, that's connected by a central theme, and they're all in this photo album where you can just flip through and you're like, oh wow, this scene is the style is overexposed, and this scene is more saturated color, and this scene is it's intimate and it's a little bit sad, and this photo has a lot of puppets in it, so you're just like flipping this album, and I'm sure one of the picture will hit you.
Genuine answer is I think this is a very private story that is universal in its theme. And I believe that people will find moments in this play that will truly impress them and live with them even after they leave this theater. Hi, my name is Gefei Liu. My play Birds and the Curiosity, written by me and my friend Olivia Xing. There will be shadow puppets, a giant ostrich, a hamster singing, and a lot of other fun stuff happening in this show. It's family friendly, but it's also welcoming all age audiences. You will laugh for sure. You will probably cry a little bit if you're emotional. But anyways, it is a story that I believe should be heard by everybody. And please come to see Birds and the Curiosity. See you at the theater.
Hi, I'm Olivia Singh. I'm the director and playwright for the new Theater for Audience and API piece, Birds and the Curiosity, 鸟语好奇号. It's a coming of age story of the 9-year-old Chinese girl and her time traveling future self, and many birds and a singing hamster. Want to know more? Come see our show.